Hey, what's going on everybody? Today we're going to be talking about some gimbals, specifically the DJI RSC2 versus the Zhiyun Weebill 2. Now I want to say right in the beginning that even though I have relationships with both of these companies, I actually purchased both of these gimbals myself. Neither of them were provided to me, and so I'm going to give my genuine, honest thoughts on each of them. But I'll say this right up front. Both of them are good gimbals. It's kind of a given, but they're definitely different experiences. So let's jump right into it. First of all, let's kind of set the stage of who these gimbals are potentially for. If you have a small, more mirrorless or DSLR setup, kind of like my Blackmagic Pocket 4K with this Canon 18-135 lens, something in that general realm, these gimbals are for you. As soon as you are stepping up to something like the Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro with a heavier lens on it, that is going to be too much for these gimbals to handle. I did try balancing this exact setup. Now, even though the total weight of this package technically is under what the 3 kilograms of the RSC2 specifies on their website, and the Weebill 2 actually doesn't even, at least that I found anywhere, say a specific pound or kilogram weight that it can handle. It kind of just gives you a list of approved cameras. The 6K Pro is extremely wide, and then this Cine lens is pretty much over 2 pounds. Then the plastic body of the camera itself is kind of light, but it's extremely wide. It's just a very awkward camera for it to balance. And while I could have tried putting some counterweights on the side, I really didn't want to rig this up to be something crazy. Again, these gimbals are kind of aimed at the target market for people with smaller camera packages. And so what's the point if you're just gonna have to add a bunch of counterweights and do like these crazy setup in order for it to kind of work and do its job. So for this video, I'm nixing the 6K Pro, and we're just gonna be using the lighter camera package of my Pocket 4K and that lens. The other thing I wanna point out here is that it's not a perfect comparison in terms of the camera package that I got. So the Weebill 2, the Pro package that comes with the follow focus and stuff, actually wasn't available. It wasn't in stock when I went to order it on Amazon, and looked like it was out of stock in most places at the time. So I do have the Pro package of the DJI, so that's why you see the follow focus here and not over here. And before we talk about the gimbals themselves, almost broke my camera. This untwists easily, as I was saying. So before we talk about the gimbals themselves, I want to talk about the cases that they come with, because I was actually pleasantly surprised, and it's kind of hilarious how similar they are. As you can see, they are nearly identical in terms of bags here. We essentially have a like semi-hard soft shell case, and then they're kind of basically 2 layers deep. So the first one kind of spots for the various accessories. Now, as I mentioned, for the Weebill 2, I just got the standard one, which pretty much just comes with the gimbal and some cables. So that's why all this is empty. But it is nice that the standard version still comes with the kit, because then if you were to buy the extra accessories, you still have a nice place to store them. Or if you keep with the standard, I have a lot of places for camera batteries, memory cards. I mean, you could end up potentially taking everything in one case if you just like have your camera on a strap on your shoulder when it's not on the gimbal, and then you can put everything else in here. And then on the bottom, there's just packing. So it comes with some camera connecting cables here, and then you have the gimbal down here. And over on the DJI, it's a little similar. I do like, it's got a little bit more separated packing here. And again, I did get the Pro package for here. So we have the phone hookup here, various cables, and then of course we have the Raven Eye wireless transmitter that you can connect to the bottom. This guy's pretty cool. We're actually gonna go more in depth into this whole system in a second video. And similar to the other one on the bottom, we have a couple other packs more with a ton of cables. This one basically to connect any sort of camera you can think of, as well as the follow focus and stuff. And then again on the bottom you have where you strap in the gimbal, and they actually have included a little diagram of how it's supposed to be oriented and folded in there. I actually really appreciate that. So there are your carrying cases. Definitely I think, pretty even so far. All right, so for the first gimbal, let's talk about the Weebill 2 here. Now, as someone who's been using the Crane 3S with much bigger camera packages, I gotta say, it was very nice playing around with both of these gimbals as they are so small and light in comparison. I mean, to just operate a full gimbal one-handed is really something that I'm not used to, but was very happily surprised. This setup actually breaks down into a couple different pieces. You actually have this handle right here, which actually may be optional. So it can be even more compact. And now you kind of have your traditional just pistol grip. Of course, the tripod stand on the bottom can easily come off as well. And now you got a really compact grip. This is pretty decently light to use, but definitely having the back handle just gives you a lot more feeling in terms of, you know, being able to go to underslung mode easily, or just having two hands to do this kind of takes all the weight off of the one arm that's actually holding it. If you have a long shoot day, I definitely recommend either having the back handle here or using the tripod on the bottom just as a secondary grip. And then obviously when you're not operating it, to easily set it down. Now, in terms of balancing your camera on here, there's something that I really didn't like just because it felt very limiting. And that is on the back motor here, there is no way to adjust anything. So on the bottom motor here, you can move it forward and back, just like pretty much every other gimbal. And then on the side, you have movement as well to adjust up and down. But back here, you can't move it left, you can't move it right. It's just kind of at a fixed point in the back. Compare that to the Ronin and almost every other gimbal out there. All three motors, you can adjust the roll axis. So especially for being a Blackmagic shooter and having really wide, awkward camera bodies, that was definitely a concern. So you can see if I unlock all the motors, it is not balanced. But thankfully, when I actually turn the gimbal on and the motors kick in, you can see that they definitely are strong enough to hold it pretty much without any issues. It's definitely a strong motor. Now let's talk about some of the other buttons and of course the standout feature of this, which is the screen. When you're actually holding it, it's a very nice, comfortable grip, and they kind of have the joystick at an angle, which is different than the Ronin and most other gimbals. Most of them are kind of in the back where you would have the screen and menu system. So if you're a person that uses the joystick a lot to add independent movements to the gimbal, then you're really, really going to love the placement of this. I personally almost never use the joystick, to be honest. I've never dialed in the settings for like how fast they are and stuff. I am the type to always set the gimbal to the mode that I want, and then I'm just moving it physically. Very, very, very rarely do I use the joystick. So while it feels really good with its placement, it's kind of wasted space to me. And that kind of brings me to my other con, is the follow focus motor. Again, I don't have the motor up front to actually show you, but we all know how the follow focus systems work on gimbals. And the wheel is actually placed back here. Now, it's not a terrible placement. It's actually placed where most gimbals have it. I mean, again, if I bring up my Crane 3S here, we can see that it too is on the side like normal, so it's still kind of an awkward position. And definitely if you're in underslung mode, it's at a nice spot. And if you're operating at two hands, it's definitely not terrible. But after using the Ronin's follow focus, which I'll show you in a few minutes, you'll understand why this is a con in my book. The other thing too is it just doesn't feel right. It's a little bit too stiff, and maybe it's something I just need to use more, and so it's like brand new, so it just needs some kind of breaking in. But I don't know, the feel of it is just, it's really, really stiff. It takes quite a bit of attention to turn it. Now on the front, you have the trigger. So if I use the joystick to move it off center here, I can click it twice to go back to center. And if I click it 3 times, then it'll actually go into selfie mode and kind of turn around, and click 3 again, and it goes back to the front. We have our light on the side just to let us know that it's on and working. You do have a record button down here if you're using a camera that supports kind of the functionality for it. And then I do like this little switch here. This allows you to quickly change between the modes PF, L, and F. So even if you have the screen folded in, you can easily change modes doing that. So you can go into lock mode or easily PF, which are some of the most common ones. And then on this side, you'll actually see there's a 1/4-20 and kind of RE rosette, which I actually have attached. This is one of my favorite physical things of this gimbal. Anyone who has seen my gimbal videos before, you know how much I love this battery pack, actually from Zhiyun. It's for the Crane 3S Pro package, but it basically offers a DTAP port and allows me to connect directly to the Blackmagic, pretty much any of the pocket cameras. And so I was able to take the small V-mount adapter for the Crane 3S Pro, put it on that mount, and now I can attach the battery there. Did not like that. And so now I have a little bit more of a heavy, but more pro setup. And now I can run this camera for like 4 or 5 hours instead of having to worry about the internal batteries. So it's nice to have pretty much just one cable. I can loop it wherever I want, kind of more out of the way there. And now I have a nice battery solution for this as well. You do have a couple more 1/4-20s on the back handle if you were to get that, or if you take the handle off and take this off, then you would have, I guess, another 1/4-20 or 3/8 back there. All right, so now let's talk about the biggest standout feature of this gimbal, which is this fold out screen. So it definitely is a nice design. If you're not currently using it, it flips down, kind of flips to the back of the gimbal, extremely out of the way. You kind of forget that it's even there. So definitely good job on the design. It feels good, has a nice solid clickiness to it. I don't feel like I can easily break it. And it is nice to have the menu system kind of up and out here. So it's definitely cool to see and something new. But again, I'm here to talk about real world use. And so keep in mind that I'm using a camera that doesn't easily support this screen. So for a lot of cameras, you have to have the more pro package with the video transmitter and then connect everything together in order to use this as an actual monitor. And so if you're just using it as a basic setup, then what you're getting is basically a larger screen than most gimbals or any gimbal I've seen has to choose your various different modes. So compared to just the couple options you have on this physical button, you have the pan follow, you have the lock, you have the follow mode, those are all normal. And then you also have POV, which is going to give you kind of the any direction sort of thing. It does have a portrait mode, and so this allows you to kind of go underslung. Now you can record your favorite TikToks that way. Go mode is kind of like the sport mode, so this is just gonna follow wherever you point it, and it's going to be very quick and responsive. And then finally you have vortex mode, which again is going to do that. And now I can use the joystick to rotate it 360 degrees. You can see it's actually struggling upside down. I'm holding the joystick to go as fast. That was really slow. Let me see, do I have settings for that maybe? Okay, so I guess the roll settings by default were just pretty slow. So this is set to 100%, so that's pretty good. So besides the various modes, basically what you get on here is change the parameter settings just like I needed to change the speed, calibration stuff, what your follow focus wheels do, as well as this wheel, which I can change to be roll and other things. See, and it's not smooth. It's also delayed. Now again, cool to go through, cool to fine tune your settings and things like that. But then to be honest, after I did that for the first time and I have my PF mode that I normally shoot in, I never touched the screen again. See, and when I first saw this gimbal, I thought that was gonna be a game changer. I thought, oh man, I'm gonna get this and I'm never gonna be able to use another gimbal again because it doesn't have this cool built-in screen. And to be honest, it's just not true. It's gonna be way better to me if I just attach another monitor like I'm used to that's going to have good monitor features like scopes and probably be brighter, better in daylight. This is quite the glossy display. It's decently bright, but definitely not going to replace a good like 5-inch 2000 nit monitor or anything. I'm definitely happy they made a screen. I'm happy it exists, and it's definitely cool. And if you're one of the people that do want to connect your camera to the gimbal itself, so that way you can use this as an actual monitor or get more camera controls, then you're probably gonna have a great experience. For me, don't care for it too much. All right, so we've talked enough about the Weebill 2. Let's jump to talking about the DJI Ronin. All right, so here we have the DJI RSC2. Now I wanna point out something that's a little different, and that is the plate that it comes with actually has both like the Manfrotto and then the Arca Swiss quick release. Compared to on the Weebill 2, you just kind of have your regular plate here. It's just normal and flat. Here, if I were to take this guy off, you can see that you can either mount your camera like normal up here, or if you want to be more efficient, and let's say you get your camera kind of locked in with, you know, both forward dimensions and how close it is to this motor, and you don't want to have to rebalance it every time, then you have this nice little quick release plate up here at the top. So I'm just gonna attach it to the bottom of the camera here. All right, and again, now if this was already pre-balanced and I took it off to do some like handheld shots or something, I can easily slide it back on. It's already perfectly in position and I'm good to go. But I don't think it is, so I'm gonna balance this real quick. And as I mentioned before, when balancing the roll, we actually are able to do that and get a pretty proper roll balance here. As you can see, it's still unlocked and not totally falling to one side. All right, pretty decent balance there for really quick. Let's power this guy up and talk about the external features. All right, so as you can see, it's turned on, it's balanced, and very similar to the Weebill, it handles this camera package just fine. Now this is a much more standard kind of pistol grip design. Again, we have our removable tripod on the bottom that we can use for two-handed use or take it off and get a much smaller design here. It feels very similar in the hands to the Weebill 2, but it's definitely a smaller camera package since you don't have the monitor and the optional back handle. It's definitely extremely skinny, which I actually kind of like. Now, in terms of mounting, there's not a great ordeal here. We actually have two built-in NATO rails on the side. If you have a lot of NATO accessories, you're gonna love this. Personally, I would have loved RE rosettes, just because that's what I have accessories for, but not terrible. And then there's actually only a 1/4-20 in one real spot. We'll talk about that in a second. And then on the back, you have your traditional controls. You have a 1-inch screen, you have your joystick, your record button, and your mode button. Over here, you have your power button and your USB-C power port. Totally forgot to mention on the previous gimbal that neither of these have user removable batteries. That was something that was new to me. I'm used to having a bunch of gimbal batteries. But yeah, these guys you just charge via USB Type-C. For what it's worth, on the Weebill 2, the charging port is on the bottom and the back here. Both of them last a very long time. I forget the specs on the Weebill, but I believe for the DJI, it's up to like 14 hours per charge. And I've never really had either of them die on me, even after a handful hours use for shoots and stuff. If you're your casual gimbal user who's gonna buy this, you're not really gonna worry about your battery too much. Even on professional gimbals, I like never worry about the battery. Camera batteries, yes, but gimbal batteries always seem to last like forever. And then on the left-hand side, you have the back button for your menu, and then a little scroll wheel that is also pushable, and that is how you kind of navigate through your menu system. On the front, you have your trigger, like just like the other one. So I can double tap to recenter. 3 taps gives me the same selfie mode from the Weebill. And then right above the trigger is my favorite, the focus wheel. So to me, these are gimbals that should be easily one-handed use. And this is the first gimbal that I've seen that puts a very nice follow focus wheel on the front. Not over here where my thumb has to awkwardly do it or where I have to awkwardly hold and rotate to pull focus with my second hand here. it is right up front to where with one hand, I can easily use this entire gimbal and change the focus, or if I'm using it with two hands, again, I'm still using my dominant hand to pull focus. And it's such a simple placement, but it's so nice. I love it so much. And in terms of the quality of the focus wheel, I love the tension on this. It doesn't feel too hard to pull and push, but it's also tensioned enough to where you can make really fine movements. And it feels consistent all throughout the rotation. So you can do faster pulls or really refined stuff, like I said. Now, the other big standout feature of this gimbal is the fact that it does have kind of a underslung mode, so to speak, and that is brought on by this little lock right here. So you're gonna feel like you're gonna break the gimbal, but I promise you, you won't. You essentially unlock this and it tells you which way to tighten or lock it. And now, whether it's on or off, it doesn't really matter. Currently the gimbal's on. Maybe DJI recommends one way or the other, but for me, I've been doing it while it's on. So I didn't see a big deal. And now all you do is kind of grab the front motor here and tilt it forward. And it can go all the way right there. It's very interesting. But one thing that you definitely can do is kind of turn it around. So that way the motors are in the back, and now it's not going to hit the actual gimbal. Again, for underslung mode, this is really, really nice. And while it's open, you actually can see that you have 1/4 20 with already locking pins right there. So it's kind of weird because if you wanted to put an accessory on there, you'd have to leave this open. So kind of a weird choice, but I guess if they have the space, why not put it? And then it's gonna lock that back. It's kind of gonna reset itself. Don't forget to lock that point back on. And these motors are really strong. Like I said, it flips all over to correct itself. And we have pretty much the same modes. We have the, FPV drone, FPV mode, PF. And what's cool is basically with any mode, if you press and hold the mode button, that's gonna put it into sport mode. I haven't found a way to make that stick to where you don't have to press and hold the M button, because especially one-handed, you can't, it's really hard and awkward to have your thumb right here and then focus this. Like, I don't have a great grip on the handle. So if you're using the kind of sport mode there, you're definitely gonna want two-hand operations to help take the weight off. And then now it's moving around nice and quick. Again, we're going to go in depth to the wireless monitoring system on this later, but it does fit underneath here, and that gives you a whole range of options for transmitting to use your phone as a monitor, or again, being focus pulled wirelessly. Like I said in the very beginning, all gimbals nowadays are going to kind of look and give you pretty good quality footage as long as you're using the proper gimbal for the weight class of camera. So really for me, what it comes down to is not which one's stabilized better, because they're both relatively on par for that, but which one is easier to use, faster to set up, faster to tear down, more portable, and has the features that I like most. Now, to be honest, when I first got these gimbals out of the box when they arrived, I really thought that I was going to go with the Weebill 2, because again, I thought this screen was going to be groundbreaking. I thought I was going to really just need this back handle. But to be honest, I think that I would rather go with the Ronin RSC2. And here's why. One, I like the fact that it does have the articulating kind of crazy motor thing that you can detach and do this. Because again, it basically gives you both of these handles, but in the footprint of one of them. It's easy to change, literally just takes a couple seconds. I also was worried about the build quality of that, and it doesn't feel like it's loosening or kind of giving out on me, or that it's gonna break and drop everything. I really don't like that the roll motor of this is not adjustable at all, that it's totally fixed, whereas here, I felt like I had more options and I was able to actually properly balance the Pocket 4K without needing any weights or anything on the side. I like the mounting plate. Again, I'm not gonna say the focus wheel because it's not fair, because I wasn't able to review this, but the focus wheel that's built into The handles 100% goes to the DJI. I love the placement of this, and this has forever ruined my experience with other gimbals that don't have a follow focus right in the front for my pointer finger. This follow focus, it's not my favorite placement, and I think the build quality of the wheel isn't tuned to what I think is very good. So overall, I just think the DJI is easier to use. It packs up to a smaller footprint, even though the carrying cases are roughly the same size, so whatever. It does feel lighter overall. It's a lot skinnier. And while the Weebill 2 is a great gimbal, don't get me wrong, if it's me who's putting my money into one of these gimbals, I'm personally gonna go with the DJI. Do you guys agree with me? Let me know down in the comments below. If you haven't already, don't forget to get subscribed so you don't miss out on future videos where we talk about these gimbals and cameras and phones and everything else we talk about on this channel. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next one.